Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of conversational AI.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at a company called Sesame.
Okay.
Now, Sesame, they're doing some pretty interesting work,
Hmm.
trying to push the boundaries of what's possible with these AI voice assistants.
Right.
And, everyone's familiar with those,
Yeah.
Alexa, Siri, all
For
those.
sure.
But, they can be pretty frustrating sometimes, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like
Not really.
trying to have a
Yeah, it's not a real
conversation. It's more like
Yeah.
you're giving them commands and hoping they understand.
It's very transactional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, we've got a demo from Sesame,
Cool.
and we've also got a research article they put out
Nice.
detailing some of their work. So we're going to be taking a look at both of those,
Okay, great.
kind of see what they're all about, what makes them different.
So one of the things that really stood out to me was their focus on this idea of voice presence.
Yeah. So that's a really key concept for them.
What is it?
Like, how do you make an AI sound more, I guess, present and engaging?
More human.
More human.
Like
Exactly.
flat, not just
Not just like
said
flat,
script.
robotic tone, like reading off a script.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got to have some life to it, you know?
Right.
And that's what they're going for with voice presence. They actually break it down into four main components.
Okay.
So there's emotional intelligence,
Uh-huh.
which is basically like, can the AI understand and respond to human emotions?
So like if you're feeling frustrated,
Exactly.
it can kind of pick up on that and maybe adjust its tone accordingly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Then there's conversational dynamics. So that's all about like the natural flow of conversation.
Okay.
Turn taking, pacing, those sorts of things.
Makes sense.
Then there's contextual awareness.
Yeah.
So that's like, can the AI remember past interactions?
So it's not just responding to each individual prompt in isolation.
Right. Right.
It's building on the entire conversation.
Exactly. And then finally, consistent personality.
Okay.
So, does the AI have its own like unique character?
Right, right.
Something that makes it memorable and distinguishable.
That's a good point. Because, if they all sound the same,
Yeah.
it just gets kind of boring after a while.
Exactly. So they're really trying to like give each AI its own distinct flavor.
So they're trying to hit all these points with their AI assistants.
Mhm.
And in the demo, they introduce us to Maya and Miles, who are kind of their showcase for all this.
Yeah, so they're supposed to be examples of AI companions
Right.
that embody this voice presence concept.
And to really dig into the technical side of things,
Yeah.
we've got this research article which focuses on their Conversational Speech Model, or CSM.
Right.
And this is where things get
Yeah.
a little bit more complex.
A little bit, yeah.
It's like, okay, voice presence, we kind of get that. But how do you actually build it? Right.
Yeah.
So this CSM is...
This is their secret sauce.
Yeah, their secret sauce.
Yeah.
So the article, it talks about traditional text-to-speech systems.
TTS.
Yeah, TTS, yeah.
Those are kind of like the old guard, they can
Yeah.
read text aloud, but they don't really sound very natural.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially in a conversational setting.
It's like they're just reading a script. There's no...
Yeah, no nuance.
Emotion. It's very robotic.
So Sesame is trying to solve that problem with CSM.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the key things that CSM does
Yeah.
is it analyzes the entire conversation history.
So it's not just looking at the current sentence.
Right.
It's taking into account everything that's been said before.
And it uses that information to generate a more natural, appropriate response.
Exactly. So like if you're having a back and forth with the AI,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to sound more like a real conversation.
Like it's following along, it's remembering.
Yeah, it's keeping up with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because that's what's missing from a lot of these current systems.
Okay. So that makes sense at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
But how does it actually work?
Yeah. So that's where it gets a little bit
Technical. Yeah.
But they talk about these things called audio tokens.
Okay.
And there are two types, semantic and acoustic.
Semantic, acoustic.
Yeah.
What are those?
So semantic tokens, those are basically like the meaning of what's being said.
Okay.
So the words, the grammar, all that stuff.
The content.
Yeah, the content.
Okay.
And then acoustic tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Those are more about the delivery. So like the tone of voice,
The pause.
the pauses, the inflections,
Yeah.
all those little things that make speech sound natural.
So you've got like the meaning layer and then the delivery layer.
Exactly.
Okay.
And traditional systems, they often struggle with that delivery part.
Right.
They focus too much on the semantic and not enough on the acoustic.
So they get the words right, but it just doesn't sound quite human.
Okay. But CSM It's designed to use both.
So it's much more sophisticated.
Much more.
Yeah.
And to handle all of that information, it uses these things called RVQ tokens.
RVQ.
Yeah, and it works directly on them.
Okay.
So instead of going through a bunch of intermediate steps like some other systems do, it's kind of like a more direct approach.
More efficient.
More efficient, yeah.
And it uses two main components,
Right.
the multimodal backbone and the audio decoder. Backbone decoder.
Yeah, it sounds complicated, but think of it this way.
Okay.
The backbone is kind of like figuring out the overall structure of the speech
Okay.
based on the conversation so far.
The basic framework.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then the decoder comes in
Yeah.
and fills in all the details.
Ah, like the fine-tuning.
The fine-tuning, yeah.
Okay.
So it adds the emotion, the personality, all that good stuff.
So it's like a rough sketch.
Yeah.
And then the decoder comes in and makes it a masterpiece.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. But of course, training a system like this is a huge computational challenge
Oh, I bet.
because you're dealing with so much data.
Yeah. All those tokens, all those calculations.
It's a lot to handle. So to overcome that, they use a technique called compute amortization.
Compute amortization.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially
Yeah.
it's a way to make the training process more efficient
Okay.
without sacrificing the quality of the output.
So they're finding clever ways to kind of optimize the process.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like imagine you're trying to bake a giant cake, but your oven's not big enough.
Okay.
Compute amortization is like finding a way to bake it in sections.
In smaller batches.
Yeah, without losing any of the detail or flavor.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. So they're doing a lot of really innovative stuff on the technical side.
Okay, so we've talked about how they train CSM,
Yeah.
but how do they know if it's actually working?
Right. So they have a whole suite of evaluation techniques that go beyond just looking at whether the AI said the right words or not.
Right, because that's not enough anymore.
Not at all. I mean, these systems are getting so good at mimicking human speech
Right.
that you need more sophisticated ways to measure their performance.
So what kind of tests are they doing?
Well, one interesting one is called homograph disambiguation.
Homograph disambiguation.
Yeah, it's a fancy term.
Yeah.
But basically, it tests whether the AI can correctly pronounce words that are spelled the same,
Okay.
but have different pronunciations depending on the context.
Oh, like lead.
Exactly.
A metal versus lead to guide.
Exactly.
That's tricky.
Yeah. And CSM actually does really well on this test.
Interesting.
Yeah. It shows that it's actually understanding the context.
Okay, that's impressive.
Hmm.
But are there any areas where it still struggles?
Well, in subjective evaluations,
Okay.
where human listeners judge the naturalness of the speech,
Okay.
CSM still lags behind humans,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to complex conversational contexts.
So it's getting close,
Yeah.
but there's still room for improvement.
There's always room for improvement.
Which makes sense. I mean, human conversation is a pretty complex thing.
It is.
You know, there's so much going on beneath the surface.
It's not just about the words.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about the emotions, the intentions.
All those unspoken cues.
Exactly.
So it's not surprising that AI is still catching up.
Yeah. But the progress they've made is really impressive.
Okay, so one last thing I wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
Sesame's commitment to open sourcing their work.
Ah, yes. That's huge.
Why is that such a big deal?
Well, it means they're making their research and code available to the wider AI community.
So anybody can...
Anybody can access it
Yeah.
and build upon it.
So it's not just Sesame working in isolation.
Okay.
It's like a global collaborative effort
It is, yeah.
to push this technology forward.
Yeah. And that's really important because we need all hands on deck if we're going to solve these complex challenges.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they're really trying to be transparent and collaborative, which is great to see.
Absolutely. And it also helps to foster innovation.
Right, because more people are able to contribute
Exactly.
and build on each other's ideas.
It's like a rising tide lifts all boats.
That's a good way to put it. So they've got this CSM model.
Yeah.
They're doing all these interesting evaluations. They're open sourcing their work.
Yeah.
What's next for Sesame and their conversational AI?
Well, they're planning to expand language support for CSM.
Okay.
So, making it work for more languages,
Right.
which is a huge undertaking in itself.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because different languages have different nuances,
Totally.
different structures.
That's not just about translating the words.
No, it's about understanding the cultural context.
Yeah. And they're also working on even more sophisticated models
Wow.
that can understand even more about human conversation.
Like what?
like things like turn-taking, conversational flow.
So it's not just about responding to individual prompts.
Right.
It's about actually participating in a back and forth exchange.
Yeah, like a true conversation.
Wow, it sounds like we're on the verge of a real breakthrough here.
Yeah, it's exciting times.
This is really making me rethink how I interact with AI. It's no longer just about commands, it's about a real exchange of ideas,
Right.
which makes me wonder, where could this tech really make a difference? Like, what are the practical applications?
Oh, tons of possibilities. Think about customer service.
Yeah.
Imagine like AI-powered chatbots that actually get what you're trying to say.
No more getting stuck in those endless phone menus.
Exactly. No more repeating yourself a million times.
Sign me up.
Yeah, it could totally change how we interact with businesses, make it, a lot less stressful.
Okay, that makes sense, but it goes beyond just efficiency, right?
Right. It could change how we connect with each other, too.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, think about AI companions offering emotional support. Like, that could be huge for people struggling with loneliness.
Especially as more and more people live alone.
Exactly. AI could fill that gap, provide that companionship.
Okay, that's pretty incredible. But I can't help but think about the downsides, too.
Yeah, I mean, any powerful technology comes with risks.
What kind of risks?
Well, job displacement, for one.
Like AI taking over jobs that humans currently do.
It's happened before with other technologies, right?
Hmm.
It's natural to be concerned about that.
It is.
But new technologies also create new opportunities.
So it's more about adaptation.
Yeah, finding ways to work alongside AI,
Mm,
using its strengths, but also valuing human skills.
that makes sense. Are there other downsides?
Well, misuse is a big one, like AI being used to spread misinformation.
Oh, that's scary.
It is. That's why ethical guidelines are so important.
And regulations, right, to prevent that kind of thing.
Definitely. We need safeguards. It's a balancing act.
Right. Embracing the potential, but being cautious about the risks.
And that's where Sesame being open source is so important.
It is.
Yeah, because they're bringing the whole community in, being transparent.
So it's a global effort, not just one company deciding what happens.
Right, exactly. And that kind of open dialogue, it helps mitigate bias, make sure everyone benefits.
Okay, so zooming out a bit, where do you see conversational AI going in the next few years?
I think one key area is going to be understanding nuance.
Nuance, like in conversation.
Like emotions, those little
Yeah.
cues we give each other, even cultural differences.
That seems really hard.
It is a huge task. It'll require big advancements in natural language processing, machine learning, even effective computing.
Wow, it's like a whole new world. And all of this, it must need so much data.
Oh, data's crucial, but it's not just about quantity. It's about quality and diversity, too.
What do you mean?
Well, imagine training AI on data from only a small group of people.
Hmm.
It could create bias.
Oh, right. So the AI needs to learn from data that represents everyone.
Exactly. Different cultures, languages, perspectives. That's
Yeah.
the only way to make it inclusive.
Wow, this has been so fascinating.
We've covered a lot, from how it works to the impact it could have. But it's just the tip of the iceberg.
So much to think about. Maybe we can recap some key takeaways for our listener.
Sure. First, Sesame CSM model is really innovative. It's pushing the boundaries. They're focused on AI that's more human-like.
Yeah, and we talked about the risks too. Job displacement, misuse.
And that's why open source is so important for ethical development.
Right. And the future. It's all about making AI that understands us better, including our emotions.
Exactly. Creating AI that reflects how complex human interaction is, which is an amazing goal.
It is. So we've talked about how conversational AI works, some potential uses, but what about the bigger picture? Like, where's all of this headed? What does the future look like with this tech?
Oh man, that's the big question, isn't it? It's exciting, but also kind of scary.
Yeah, it reminds me of those old sci-fi movies, robots walking around talking to people like it's normal.
I know exactly what you mean. And what's crazy is that it's starting to feel more and more possible. Imagine like AI helping us in ways we haven't even thought of yet, like super personalized education or healthcare that's tailored to you, or even AI partners that can help us solve huge scientific problems.
It's like having a brilliant friend who's always there to help, to bounce ideas off of.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just practical stuff too, right? Like AI companions that could help us with our mental health or just understand ourselves better.
Like a built-in support system, always there to listen. That could really change people's lives for the better.
For sure. But of course, no technology is perfect. There are downsides too, and as we get closer to this AI future, we need to think about those.
Yeah, like we talked about misuse before, but are there other things we need to worry about?
Well, a lot of people are worried about jobs. Like, what happens if AI gets so good it starts replacing human workers?
That's a valid concern.
Absolutely. And that's a tough question, right?
Yeah.
But technology has always changed the job market.
True. New tech sometimes gets rid of old jobs, but it also creates new ones.
Right. Like, no one could have predicted Uber drivers back when everyone was using horses and buggies.
Exactly. So maybe it's not humans versus AI, but figuring out how to work together.
Exactly. Recognizing the good things about both and finding the right balance. But there's another big thing we need to think about. Human connection.
What do you mean?
Well, if we have these AI companions who are always there for us, offering support and friendship, will we become too dependent on them?
Oh, I see what you mean. Like we could end up neglecting our real life relationships.
Exactly. It's about making sure tech helps us connect with each other, not the opposite. Finding that balance where AI makes our relationships even better.
This has been so insightful. It feels like we've gone beyond just the tech stuff and into some really deep questions.
Me too. It's amazing to see how fast this field is changing and what it could mean for all of us.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into conversational AI, what's the one thing you'd want our listeners to take away?
I think the most important thing is to remember that AI is a tool, and it's up to us to decide how we use it.
We have the power to decide what the future of this tech looks like, to make sure it reflects our values.
Right. So let's keep talking about it,
Yeah.
exploring the possibilities, and working together to build a future where AI helps everyone.
It's been a pleasure diving into this with you. Thanks for all the insights.
The pleasure was mine. Keep asking those questions and never stop exploring.
That's great advice. And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of conversational AI. Until next time, stay curious.